Well, if you don't pay child support in Florida, there's several things that can happen. I mean, the most obvious thing is that the Department of Revenue is going to get involved and then suspend your driver's license, which is a real problem because if you're driving around with a suspended driver's license and you get caught, it can become a criminal offense if you had knowledge of your suspended license. So the biggest issue, of course, is having your license suspended and your ability to work is halted dramatically, or else you risk going to jail just on the license issue. Other things that the department can do is actually garnish your wages and put a lien against any property that you own. Another issue that can come up is in certain circumstances, you can actually go to jail for not paying child support if the proper motions are filed and if a judge orders that, and that you'd have to pay the child support as a purge to get out. So the consequences can increase pretty dramatically. Well, a license suspension is a circumstance where your license can be suspended for not doing something. In this case, not paying child support can actually be a basis to suspend your license, and often is. So it's usually actually the first thing the department goes to actually get your attention and say, hey, you can't drive. It's time to come into court and explain why you haven't been paying your child support. A scenario where your license can be suspended and will be because it's often the department's first line of defense to get your attention and say, hey, you have to address this matter. Now, the problem with license suspensions is if you continue to drive while it's suspended, this can go from a civil infraction, kind of like a speeding ticket, all the way up to a felony if you continue to do it. So yes, your license can be suspended for lack of paying child support. Unpaid child support can result in jail time because a judge can actually issue something called a writ of bodily attachment and then make the child support number a purge, meaning like you got to pay this in order to get out. We don't really have debtor's prison anymore except for this scenario. A custodial parent can enforce a child support order across state lines because of something called the UCCJEA, which is basically a fancy thing saying, hey, all 50 states in this country recognize that we move and a parent can go from one state to another and often does. And what happens if the case was in Florida and the order was in Florida? How could it be enforced in Georgia or Alabama? Well, you can actually file for a new case over in that state to have your Florida order enforced through a system that's already in place under the UCCJEA. So yes, if it's a United States situation and the person is in some other state, it's actually not that complicated in order to get that state to enforce Florida's order.